Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another session of the Neota Network. Today, we're going to jump over to employment law and how the tool can be used with specific practice areas, but then as well applied to a broad range of tools and as well sold as a product itself. So this is a really, really interesting one. So I'd like to introduce Joe Panza, who's the Senior VP of Product and Operations over at Compliance HR. And Joe oversees the development, management, and success of Compliance HR's award-winning line of products. He actually began his career as a software engineer at a video compression company that was later acquired by Google. Joe left the company to attend law school in Chicago, where he also worked on international human rights programs. In this role, he traveled to Iraq, create software that tracked gender-based violence across the country. And after becoming an attorney, Joe led the design of proprietary software at a global AmLaw 100 ranked law firm and managed a strategic initiatives team for an international business-focused law firm. So Joe is definitely an expert in the area, and today we'll be talking to us about employment law made easy. So over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Max. My name is Joe Panza, like Max said. I'm the SVP of Product and Operations for Compliance HR. We're a SaaS company that empowers HR and legal professionals to address their HR compliance risks throughout the U.S. A little bit about Compliance HR. We're our own company. We were formed through a joint venture between Neota Logic and Littler Mendelsohn. I know you're all well aware of Neota Logic, which we use along with some custom development for all of our applications that we sell. Littler Mendelsohn is the world's largest labor and employment law firm. We work with Littler in many ways, including monitoring regulatory and labor developments to make sure our applications and all our content is kept up to date. So today, I'm going to focus mostly on a COVID-19 screening product we created using Neota Logic. Before I do, though, I wanted to briefly talk about some of our other applications. Prior to the world changing last March, we had created a suite of applications in Neota that help solve different compliance problems that employers face. So those existing applications fit a few different design patterns, but they were primarily focused on either giving information or analyzing a fact pattern to deliver the results to in-house attorneys and HR professionals. So along those lines, we have a couple products to help employers analyze risk, the risk of classifying someone as an independent contractor, for example, or the risk of classing someone as overtime exempt. We have products that create onboarding documents using document generation. We have products that are designed to give quick answers around pay practices, around minimum wage, FMLA, paid sick leave. And then finally, we have a product called Policy Smart, which helps employers create handbooks and keep those handbooks up to date using newsfeed about different employment law topics that may impact their policies or other parts of their business. So that was our roadmap up until, I guess, last March, when we had to completely throw the roadmap out the window and make a hard pivot. We started by providing quick answers in documents that related to COVID-19, and Neota was very helpful for that. As you all know, it allows you to spin up an application very quickly. So we were able to turn out these answers that were changing every day to both our existing clients to help with retention, as well as new prospects who were just, that was the pressing information that people needed access to for labor. We also, as we were developing that piece, we used Neota to create a content management system on the back end with an administrative app so that members of Littler's team could update the content directly, which helped us tremendously because at the time, and it's still true today, the changes to the regulatory landscape were happening every day, and we were across 50 jurisdictions. So, we had federal changes as well as state changes, local changes that Littler was able to jump into the administrative side, update the content, which would then get reflected in the Neota application that we served up and sell to our clients. So pretty quickly, as we were talking to our clients, we realized that, that type of information wasn't necessarily enough to handle some of the problems that were coming up. There was a huge administrative burden that was about to slam employers. Jurisdictions throughout the U.S. were passing varying rules to require that employees be screened before returning to work. And it really did vary a lot from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There's some local jurisdictions, Miami, for instance, that had very specific language that you needed to include, or specific symptom checks symptoms you needed to ask about in the daily check. Some didn't require screenings at all. So, you know, that's just a giant burden to make sure you're asking the right questions, but also just administratively as an employer to collect all that information and keep it in a secure way. On top of that, you know, asking employees to take that on, to answer a screening questionnaire every day is a burden for them. And as everybody knows, last year was a stressful time across the board. So asking people both on the employer side and the employee side to do more work around this was a lot. So we had to keep all that in mind while we were trying to figure out how can we help employers with these burdens. So that's where the Neota platform came into play again. It allowed us to get a new product to market really early in the summer, which we call ComplianceHR SmartScreen. And using Neota, we were able to get it out while a lot of competitors were still early in development. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I just want to run you through the product really quick. The core workflow for screening starts with the employer having administrators that send out questionnaires to the employee. So the first step is for the employer to go in and add people. These could be employees or other workers or even visitors to the site. They can add those through a CSV file all at once or one at a time. And we ask for some basic information around each person, like their location, which ensures that each individual is getting the right questions that are required within their jurisdiction. The next step for the administrator is to send an email to everybody through the system. The idea is that each employee or visitor can reuse the same link each time before they enter the work site. And that link sent through the email, which can be fully customized by the administrator. But since they can reuse the link, there's also the option for the administrator to add calendar reminders. So they'll send a link along with the questionnaire that allows employees to add a recurring calendar event for whatever cadence the employer thinks would be useful. So once the employee gets the email, which looks something like this with whatever custom language the employer decides, they can click that link, your questionnaire, to jump straight into the questionnaire each day. We try to make the questionnaire as simple as possible. They can open the link on any device. And it's generally a 3 to 4 question questionnaire, but again, it depends on the jurisdiction. The nice thing for our clients is these questions are all set and managed by us to fulfill the requirements using the content that Littler puts directly into the system. So if the regulatory landscape changes, they don't have to worry about sending new links or updating anything on their end. When their employees use that same link the next day, they'll receive the new questions that they're required to answer. The nice thing for us internally, because we built that back-end content management system using Neota, is as the questions are updated, we don't have to worry about releasing a new version of the application. We only have to release a new version if we're adding functionality. So once the employee fills out the quick questionnaire, they're going to receive a really simple pass or fail badge. We try to make this just as obvious as possible. And again, this could be on their cell phone in a lot of cases. We have a lot of clients who have their employees show this pass on their phone to security or front desk as they're walking into the building, so that nobody can enter the work site without showing this pass result. There's some extra information on here, like the date and a code that the employer cross-check to make sure it's a valid badge. On the other hand, if the employee fails the questionnaire, the administrator, which could be administrators for that specific work site or for the company as a whole, they instantly receive a notification. So they get an email sent out right away saying you've had somebody who failed, along with some basic information about the person. And then the administrator can log into their dashboard to find out more information and reach out to that person. So that dashboard that I mentioned, the administrative side, it looks a little bit like this. All the screening results are stored in the system. They can be viewed and exported and sorted and filtered and all the things that you normally see in a table. Then we also have custom optional fields that each client can decide to show or hide. For example, how long each questionnaire took to complete. The questionnaire, it also has some custom CSS applied to it, just again, to make it as easy as possible for employees to complete it each day on their mobile device, which generally takes under 10 seconds to open the link and complete it. Beyond that, we've integrated with a third-party service, one third-party service for the calendaring, and then another to create QR codes for a couple different pieces of functionality. We use Neota's web service functionality to call a service that produces QR codes for those pass badges. So each pass badge that I showed earlier, there's an option for the employee to click it, and it'll pull up a QR code, and that QR code can be scanned by security or the front desk to check the employee into the building. We also have QR codes that the employer can print out and put in the lobby so that visitors to the site or employees who maybe forgot to fill one out before they got there can scan that printed QR code and pull up a questionnaire to complete. So from a design perspective, we architected this a little bit differently than most. Like I mentioned, we built a CMS, which we try to do as much as possible, to allow our content delivery team at Littler to update the questions for a given jurisdiction through an administrative application, which is great from just a separation of duty standpoint. Those folks, they only need to know the content and be monitoring the content, and then can go in and edit that content. We don't have to worry about multiple people accessing different applications and potentially breaking something and needing a QA cycle every time the content changes. The questions can change without us needing to be concerned about that. The other thing I just wanted to mention, which is this image, is we built this application, and we try to do this again with our other applications just as modularly as possible. We use NAS functionality, Neota as a service apps, to enforce modularity as much as we can, so that each different function in the application has a different, or in the product has a different app in Neota. And then we use web service calls to move data around. This has helped us a lot with just maintaining the product and having multiple people work on improvements at the same time, because different people can work on different applications. And as long as you're not changing the inputs for the NAS app or the outputs, you don't have to worry about breaking a different application that's a part of the product. So a few of the things that's allowed us to add pretty quickly throughout the past year and a half, as we've gotten feedback from our clients and from prospects, we pretty quickly jumped on supporting Spanish language questionnaires and other language in Spanish throughout the product. We give clients the ability to customize emails and other messaging. We have a version that can be run as a kiosk for visitors. So similar to what you see at the airport, we have some clients who will set up a physical kiosk in the lobby that allows people visiting to fill out a questionnaire right there before they enter. We've added optional travel questions. And recently, the thing that's been probably the biggest demand is adding more and more around vaccine tracking. So both being able to have the administrators track vaccination through the system, having employees self-attest to being vaccinated, and being able to have variants of the question for vaccinated versus unvaccinated people. So we have some that are guided through the system based on the questions you're supposed to be asking from a regulatory standpoint, but we also have the ability for employers to set up a custom question to ask people who are unvaccinated. So if they want to have like a testing program, for example, they can ask a question about the testing cadence to make sure that people who are unvaccinated are getting those specific questions. Recently, too, we also added some assistance as the vaccine mandates have started to take off with the recent announcements. We've added some assistance for accommodation for those mandates. So the accommodations include both some workflow around the accommodation process, employees requesting accommodations, and then track the status, but also just sample forms and guidance for the process for employers. So those are just a few examples, but again, having Neota and having built it in a more modular way allowed us to just keep continuous improvements going in a way that was effective. Because of that continuous improvement, though, and just because of the landscape, we've been able to have a longer success with SmartScreen than we originally anticipated. It's helped us retain existing clients and bring in a large number of new clients whose main interest was screening or vaccination, which has helped us then bridge that into interest in the rest of the suite. And this interest, again, this has grown since last summer. We've had over 1 million screens run through SmartScreen already, so that's a million folks who, or 1 million times that someone has answered one of these questionnaires before returning into the work site. And that's been trending up recently in light of the news regarding mandates. So, again, the Neota platform helped us throughout this last year and a half of just having to pivot so quickly. It gave us the speed and flexibility we needed to make that possible and to keep that continuous improvement going. And then just from a development standpoint, I want to mention again, we do use Neota in a different way than most in some cases. We always try to set up some kind of back end for content that we know is going to change regularly so that can be done more efficiently. And then we try to chain together multiple mass apps just to help us maintain it effectively. And again, have modularity so it's easier to improve. And I would just recommend that to anybody else if you're building applications that are tied to some fast moving external requirements, I consider that for architecting products and know that the platform can support you in building things that way. If you have any questions about this presentation, again, my name is Joe Panza. Feel free to reach out and contact me at panza@compliancehr.com. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joe. That was really amazing, and I think sort of speaks to the power of Neota in terms of that modularity, but then as well the ability to react so quickly to such a major event in the employment law space, build something out, and then obviously the million uses, the million runs, the million screens done so far. That's huge. So thank you very much for your time, Joe, and everyone else. Hope to see you at the next installment of the Neota Network. Thanks very much.